Namo Tassa. In this video, I will talk about a certain mindset and a little bit of practice in everyday situation that actually helps to develop the proper kind of stronger mindset, which is good for meditation. And it just relates to a little article that I read online, and basically they mentioned something that also there is in the Japanese culture that they call Samu. And then there was some study done, I guess in the West, as far as neurology, to see how it affects the brain, and of course it makes quite a difference afterwards. And as I mean, especially in meditation, that could make actually the whole difference. So that article is exactly about how basically somewhat you develop also a disciplined mind in that sense. Of course, discipline is something quite important in meditation to reach further, deeper. And basically the concept of Samu is actually about some doing things that are challenging for yourself, accepting the challenges and being okay with it, and basically really having a good mindset open to doing those tasks or whatever, doing things that you don't want to do actually, but being okay with it. Just the same as there is the famous old quote around Buddhism that says that even if you become really enlightened, as you could see some very advanced monks, and you still will see them usually sweeping the ground or doing some other minor tasks like that, which are not necessarily pleasant, but it's got to be done. So it's the thing like, enlightened but still chop wood and fetch water is like that old quote that I refer to. But generally it's that mindset, especially of course in developed countries where the mind is becoming really weaker and weaker, exactly because as maybe being proud of having become a developed countries, what they mean is that they have developed the technology to make life easier, more convenient, more comfortable, again, the whole thing, and faster. So people become impatient too, as another issue, major issue, that creates a lot of tension and anxiety and stress. But the whole thing is about, again, being okay with doing what you don't want to do and dealing with things like that. And to the point that for some people, you can actually decide to create challenges. So basically, you have again that example when you see actually many people, and the point is also how you will end up later in your life, on the later stages, and it affects in different directions that way. People who have been really trying to be healthy, have developed discipline in their life, a disciplined lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle with some activity and physical activity, and actually often they are aware of the importance of the brain activity in that sense, which is what I mean in this video. And then they usually age pretty good, right? They will be in pretty good shape and look younger uh, when they are really older. So again, it's all about that, and but especially for the mind in that situation. And basically, the neuroscience has linked that practice of SAMU in Japanese affect a specific region of the brain, which is called the middle anterior cingulate cortex, MCC. And these areas of the brain, they control the willpower, the persistence, the mental resilience. And so the concept around that is that they actually developed when you yourself develop the willingness to do the things that you don't want to do originally, or that are not pleasant, but you are really okay with that. And in that sense, as I meant, if you can manage to develop that capacity, it's in one way you can work your way into discipline that way. And that MCC part of the brain strengthens only through this kind of boring efforts or mild resistance, situations, or when you have to repeat doing things without the reward. Again, that notion of reward that people enjoy so much, like kids at school. So that is exactly about that practice to develop those qualities of the mind, basically to develop a strong, disciplined mind, which is of course something that will really help later on in meditation to go deeper. And it helps you of course in everyday life, and also that's something that of course you can practice in everyday life, because usually that life provides you many of those situations where you would rather avoid or procrastinate. And that's exactly the whole difference between those two aspects of the mind. Either you go the weaker way because, again, people are quite spoiled and they would rather go the lazy, easy, convenient, comfortable way, and they don't see the point of putting yourself in discomfort or inconvenience. But that is actually my whole point that I also wanted to make around that in my own story that I have done. And since I was young, I guess I figured that one out. Of course, I was practicing already some things that require discipline, and I developed discipline through martial arts when I was young, which helped a lot, of course, and has a predisposition for the practice later on and for life. But basically, I was aware of, after that, enjoying challenging myself. And basically, some situations that could be just regular or simple, whatever, easy, sometimes I decided to make it a more challenging way, a more challenging situation, or more difficult, or choosing not the easy path. And that made, basically, some people of course would wonder why would you do that, why would you choose to make it more difficult? But not because of ignorance, but as a conscious choice, because I had become aware already of the benefits of that. I didn't have a name of it. I mean, here now neuroscience is showing some confirmation around that. But I had a good feeling that when you yourself develop that mindset that actually enjoys or find at least the good and the benefits of putting yourself in challenging situation in life, then there is actually a reward at the end, and it really works actually pretty good that way. So, and then of course many people would look at me as, you know, a bit stupid or crazy, right? Of course, because they are like, why are you making it so difficult for yourself, or why are you doing this crazy thing or whatever. One thing, and that's the problem in general, of course, I had already quite a developed awareness, and I had practiced a lot of things already in life as far as activities or sports, and so I have developed some skills that way. And then you deal with the general population again, a lot of ignorance, and as usual, a lot of ignorance is people who like to think they know better, and then you have always to deal with these people who feel compelled to tell you how you should live your life or what is better for you, and then they will feel free without being asked to tell you that, oh, but don't do it that way, or I mean, they don't even, it doesn't even come up to their mind that actually you know what you're doing. And for them, it's not that they think you're stupid, but still they think at their own level, right? So when they see you doing something in a certain way that could be done in an easier way or faster way or whatever, then they can't help but having to make a comment about that or tell you. So there is, again, in general, that mothering attitude, which is something I'm not a fan of course, from so many people, because they are so limited and they can't even think further and ultimately think that you know what you're doing, and actually that they could learn from what you're doing or the way you're doing it, but rather, of course, their level of consciousness makes them at once want to tell you or advise you that there is a easier way to do that or that, and that you shouldn't do it this way, or it's, you know, like it's so difficult or so dangerous or whatever. But of course, again, it goes back to me, and my point already as a teenager was to develop a bigger and bigger, broader comfort zone. And these people have a very, very narrow comfort zone. So again, narrow comfort zone and narrow mind with ignorance. But then they always like to think that they know better and to advise you how you should do things. So they can't conceive much that point. But that is also what I meant. So ultimately, then again, it becomes a bit two directions. If you consciously, with some awareness and aware of your skills or limitations, can enjoy to have a mindset that likes to challenge itself, to keep challenging your mind, both in situations or purely intellectually, with some typical brain games or exercises, or like we say, like mental gymnastics, as we say in French. And it has been proven, of course, now that helps to develop the mind that way and make it broader and more sharp and more present. And obviously the point here also again is that it might help to keep a healthy mind later on in your life, a more present mind. I mean, some studies have been done that way anyway. But that is the main point here, that in another hand, the general population and especially the young people, you can see the young spoiled generation who actually are used to have things kind of easy and fast, but they haven't developed real life skills, of course, and they don't really need anymore because of the way the society has developed, exactly to make things more convenient, more comfortable, or easy access, whatever. Then they have developed that nature of a mind. I mean, young people that way, or even older people, but because of the way the society is now, they are still like big babies, right? And so they will whine easily, feel sorry for themselves easily, just because things don't go the way they want, or they don't get what they want at that moment, or because they think things are so difficult. And I keep hearing that also in this context here, but people, they always enjoy mentioning that or they really work hard and life is hard and they get tired and blah blah blah. Yeah, the cultivation of the self-pity, right? Always about me, and the self, the weak mind, always likes to feel sorry for itself and doesn't really like to be challenged. And basically that's what I mean, that you, of course, the way I am and because of what I know, I like to challenge people, right? And because of my practice, life practice, both ways, meditation and in life in general, because I've seen the benefits, exactly for the sake of, again, being always on a growth path, right? Always caring to grow. And as I mean, compared to people who rather want to remain like big babies and get things done for them, or getting it the easy way. And when I talk to them or present them in situations that become a bit challenging, again, big drama. Oh no, so sorry. They feel so sorry for themselves, and the face is just like changing, just because it's a bit challenging. No big deal, nothing impossible, nothing like super hard, but just to show and confirm that the evolution of this society, of course, I mean, there's an agenda again. There's always that part that I can go to, but the agenda, of course, is to make most people more weaker and weaker, more and more dependent on the system so they can be controlled. It's always the same. So people have been made stupider and stupider by lowering the level of education, lowering the level of exams, the difficulty of exams, exactly. And for the same sake, of course, to make good, obedient, ignorant slaves. So the system doesn't like people with strong minds, of course. And my point was always that since teenager, to develop a strong mind, and in another hand, to go further in meditation, to be able to go deeper in concentration, you need that strong mind, because you have to have control of it, that discipline that will allow you to keep focus and steady and go like that. And for that, you need to practice things that develop that. So again, there's no secret, although I mean that I was always aware of that secret, which is to accept and ultimately enjoy. And that's the whole difference between me and many people, that I enjoy challenging myself that way in many situations, and especially the mind, some kind of exercise or some situation, some problem, trying to resolve that thing, that situation, that problem. I enjoy trying to find a way to deal with situation, to resolve some problems, to go around this. But you see that most people, as soon as they face a problem, a difficult situation, a challenge, then again it's a big thing, or they feel so sorry for themselves. And that's the only thing that they are really good at. And of course it's not helping for everything in life. So I just wanted to make that point here, but at the same time, it is something that's actually quite important in meditation, to allow to go further, deeper on the path in concentration and stability of the mind. You have to develop that strong mind as it was defined in those psychology and neuroscience term, resilience and willpower and all of this. So over time, after practicing that since I was a teenager, obviously, I can see the difference now in my attitude towards many situations, many things, and compared to the majority. And again, it of course helps to bring that peace of mind also, and not to have strong reactions, which are again not helpful. And one main thing, besides the stress and tension, which are never helpful, then there is also the panic kind of aspect of things, as we know that it's never good or helpful to be in a panic mode. But again, people who are not really used to be challenged, to challenge themselves, to deal with things that they don't like, don't want, then they go so easily in that sorry for myself, little panic mode. I don't know how to deal with that. Oh my god, the famous oh my god thing. So and of course that is never going to help you in life. Rather, it will fully justify the first noble truth of bringing the basic suffering in life. So if you don't like the idea of being challenged in life and challenging yourself and dealing with that, then you're just asking for more suffering again. That's just the reality of things, because life itself and the way it is set up, it's meant to be that way. It's an existence that constantly changes, and of course nowadays we see that many things are happening also on the negative or dark aspect. So most of the time, for most people, life will bring a lot of challenges, and if you don't develop that mindset that is ready for that and accepting no problem, and rather be objective and positive about developing the positivity about all that, then you will be bound to suffer quite more. So again, it's a choice, and that's exactly what we could relate to: choosing to really grow up or remain like kind of immature, childish, or like big babies who just like to feel sorry for themselves and like to complain so much. That's why in one way, and sometimes people realize that that's another way they can be a bit upset, because I don't have much time for people who just like to complain, especially about things that are just normal, part of life. It only shows exactly that they have never made the choice to practice to grow up and to face challenges as life requires. Of course, I've had a life where I've done a lot of things, and I've exposed myself to many very challenging situations, to the point of, I was so close to die quite a few times. And again, I had a mind that was fine with that idea every time. So that's probably why I'm still around. But here's a main thing, actually, again, in general. If you still keep being like most people, addicted to convenience, comfort, things done for you, easily accessible, and you don't really enjoy so much the challenge to be challenged, especially for your mind, then you are bound to suffer more. But if you make the point to develop that mindset that enjoy challenges and create situations also to see how you can adapt, and again that develop that capacity of being able to see things in many different ways or approach things from different angles instead of the one usual habit that you have, and again that you don't like to be changed or challenged. If it's out of your comfort zone, out of your habitual patterns, then suddenly it's with panic and complain and whining. So if you can accept to really practice things or create situations that challenges your mind, and for the sake of real growth, then it will go in the opposite direction and life will become easier, and you will see how much you can control a lot of things in your life actually that way, and it will be just again beneficial. And ultimately that mindset is the one that only few have, unfortunately, but that also explains why only few people can go very deep in meditation or reach the higher levels, because it requires that capacity to be developed. But if you can develop that discipline of mind and enjoying the challenges, then again there can be many rewards